I'm really honored that you chose to see this presentation on the formula for rapid skill acquisition. For me, learning is a lifelong passion. I have been in this learning industry for more than 10 years at this point, and I do credit the ability to learn as one of the key factors that has helped me to advance in my career and to achieve my definition of success in various areas. So in this particular workshop, I'm going to walk you through the entire formula for learning things fast and for rapid skill acquisition in general. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, or relearn. For me, the ability to know how to learn is a meta skill. It's a force multiplier. It's the closest thing that I personally know to a superpower. Society is advancing at a very rapid rate. We today have a lot of skills and a lot of careers and a lot of professions that did not exist not even 5 or 10 years ago. Therefore, it's becoming harder and harder to prepare the population for the things that did not exist or do not exist now. And for me, the answer of how to prepare for the unknown, especially when it comes to careers or to skills, is learning how to learn. That's why I call it a superpower. Fundamentally, this means that it's a process to break down the skills or the information that you are trying to acquire in the smallest parts. So it's easier for us to understand them and then tackle them one by one. We identify, after we break them down, we identify which of those parts are the most important for that skill or information. Then we sequence them, as in we put them into a logical progression, and we deliberately practice the key parts or the most important parts first in order to achieve results a bit faster, but also mainly it helps with motivation. Staying on track and continuing with this process. After we do this for a while, then we also need to create a formula to encode, store, and retrieve the information that we are learning so that we can access that information really fast on the spot when we need them. So fundamentally, this is rapid skill acquisition in a nutshell. And I'll be going into a detailed explanation throughout the workshop. Now, I always feel the need to give some form of disclaimers behind certain words because certain words are being thrown around quite loosely in today's society. So rapid skill acquisition or rapid learning or anything that implies rapid in the title is relative. Rapid is a relative term. So it applies when you are tackling some skill or some information as well. So rapid will depend on at least 5 of these elements here. The target level, so what level are you trying to achieve when you are embarking on your learning journey? Are you trying to get the gist of it, or are you trying to become a world authority on that particular topic? Because one might take hours or days, while the other one might take years or decades. So it's very important that you know the target level. Then it's time to achieve it. Do you have to learn something really fast because it's needed in your job, or you need it at work, or you need it at school, and you have like a month or 2 months or something along these lines? Or it's literally up to you how much time you have. Time is also a very important constraint. Then another element that helps with learning fast is existing knowledge. Do you have existing knowledge in the field that you are trying to tackle next? For example, if you are trying to learn how to create a sales webinar and you have already worked in marketing for a year or two, the probability of you learning that skill very fast is actually quite big, right? Because you have existing knowledge, so you can latch onto it. The same applies for everything else. Are you learning something from scratch, actually, meaning you have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of the element, or do you have existing knowledge? So this helps with this rapid element. The next one is IQ. In the personal development world and in society in general, People frown upon whenever you bring the term of IQ. However, IQ literally means the ability to process things faster. So for certain skills, for certain type of tasks, IQ plays a crucial role. The next one is intrinsic capacity, or put it differently, what are your prerequisites? What are some of the things that you already possess? An example of this would be if I am trying to become a world level swimmer, right? There is a intrinsic problem with me because I do not have a swimmer's body. Therefore, I am at a deficit compared to someone that it's leaner than me, has longer hands, longer legs. Therefore, it can be easier for a person like that because they have intrinsic capabilities. The same if I tackle to be a basketball player, I am immediately at a deficit compared to someone else that is at least 20, 30 centimeters higher, taller than me. The same examples, if I literally just want to know how to swim, or if I just want to learn how to play basketball, then that's a completely different story, and I can definitely learn that skill to a good enough possibility. So understanding ourselves and setting ourselves up for success from the start is important in my belief. So rapid skill acquisition. So this is the formula, and I will be naming the things now, and then I will be breaking them down each one at a time with a key component for each. Please keep in mind that I believe that for all of these elements are master classes in themselves. However, I try to distill the key element of each of these things in the following slides. So for example, phase one will start with knowing your why, then picking the target level, setting the stakes for the thing that you are trying to learn. Phase two is going to be research, deconstruction, selection, and sequencing. And phase three, we are going to start, it's basically the practice part. We are going to start with designing the environment, blocking time for practice. Then we're going to go into the iterative process. There is like a feedback loop, the continuous practice and learning from our mistakes and failures. And I'm going to explain that in detail. Then we celebrate our progress because progress is needed for motivation. So progress is very important for our motivation. And then at the end, when we think we got it, when we understand the skill, we need to reduce it and encode it in order to be able to use that at any moment in time. Let's get to each of these things in order. Phase one, know your why, pick your target level, and setting the stakes. So when it comes to knowing your why, is fundamentally the question is, why do you want to learn the skill that you want to learn? And there is a motivation scale. It goes from intrinsic to extrinsic motivation. I believe that the highest form of motivation that there is intrinsic motivation, which that's one of the things that I believe that you should always follow your curiosity. Whatever creates curiosity in you, it's an intrinsic trigger, and it's more likely that it will carry you through the learning journey. In school, it's similar to this. Many of the subjects that we learn carry no intrinsic motivation to them. They are literally extrinsic, as in we do it for the grades. For the sake of the example, we do it for the grades. In my personal example, when I was in school, I didn't care about the grades that I would get for English. I simply loved learning English because it opened an entirely new world to me. Therefore, I was always good at this particular topic. Versus other subjects, like, for example, mathematics, in my case, which I had to force myself in order to learn. So to cut a long story short, follow your curiosity, see what are intrinsic triggers that make you want to learn something. And I do understand that for some elements, there is no intrinsic motivation, as in, I need to learn something for work, but I don't care about it at all, right? So what do I do in this case? Well, you need to try to tie that element to something that you do care about. So for example, if I am learning this thing at work, will that element lead to me getting a higher pay? Okay, it will. And with that higher pay, I'm actually going to be able to treat my wife to a beautiful trip in the United States, let's say. Well, all of a sudden, I found something linked to the thing that I didn't want to do. that I actually want to do. So I want to take my wife to a trip. Therefore, I will learn this thing. I will get the promotion. I'll get the higher pay. And this is how I will achieve the goal. So you can play with this motivation. That's why I call it the scale. Next element is emotional state. All learning is state dependent. And this might be something that you also have observed in your life. You cannot learn if you are sad. You cannot learn if you are low energy. You cannot learn if you are feeling miserable during that day. So before tackling any element, you need to make sure that you are in a good emotional state. The next one is identity level. The beliefs that you have about yourself. For example, in my case, I believe that I can learn anything. So when you are looking at the identity level, when you're tackling a subject, do you have some sort of belief that says, no, there is no way in hell that I can achieve this thing? Well, if you're starting with that type of belief, then acquiring any skill or learning things faster is going to be a very uphill battle. Next one is self-awareness, knowledge about your intrinsic capabilities, what I just said earlier. So know yourself and set yourself up for success from the beginning. Are there elements that you can pick on that will help you on your learning journey already and can make it easier? Next, target level. It's very rarely done everywhere. Whenever you are picking something to learn, you need to fundamentally define the level. And I try to define a few levels here. So I'm just trying to get the gist of what I'm learning. I want to learn it at a sufficient level, or I want to be knowledgeable, actually do have more in-depth knowledge. I want to be professional in this particular thing that I'm learning, aka you can consider I want to get paid for the thing that I'm learning. Do you want to achieve mastery, as in, are you going to be perceived as an expert in your field? Or you want to be like authority, like the top 0.1%. You are literally the guy or gal, when people are thinking about this subject, they think about you, right? The target level is very important when you are considering any type of skill acquisition. Because like Josh Kaufman said, embracing the idea of sufficiency is the key to rapid skill acquisition. So for example, if you want to get the gist or sufficient, that's also, you can definitely do that, right? And I will give you an example of these two put together for me. I believe, so this identity level, the belief about myself, and keeping in my self-awareness, knowing what I know about myself and my intrinsic capabilities, I believe that if I have a sufficiently strong intrinsic motivation and I am in a good emotional state, and provided the target level is get the gist of the subject, I believe that in a few days or less, I can become better than 80% of the population on almost any topic. So I'll repeat that again. If the target level is the gist, then I believe that on almost any topic, I can become better than 80% of the population within a few days. The next one is set the stakes, right? An aim without real consequences is wishful thinking. That's why you always hear something like, I want to do this one day. Like, our wants are immense. We want to do a lot of things. But without some proper real consequences, all of those desires just remain wishful thinking. And I put this example here, like right intentions versus right incentives. There is a huge difference between this. Intentions fail. If you summarize 50 years of psychology in one sentence, is this: logic fails. But logic fails us ultimately. So we need to put the right incentives in place in order for us to do what we say we're going to do. An example will be, I didn't have this presentation done when I first created the event a few weeks back. So by making it public, right, I put it on the timetable, I put it in the calendar. Although I am working on different projects with different and also in different areas, because I made that commitment And because I put that thing in place in plain sight, I knew that I cannot disappoint people. Therefore, I found the time, I made the time, and I created the presentation. So this would be an example of an incentive done right. Rapid skill acquisition phase 2, the research, the deconstruction, selection, and sequencing. When it comes to the research, all you are trying to do, so by the way, I want to reiterate this. There can be many things said about these elements. However, I believe these are like the most foundational of the foundational one, if I can say that. So when it comes to research, all you're trying to do is find the highest frequency material. What does this mean? It means that, for example, if you're trying to find books, what are the books that stood the test of time? What are the books that deliver the most amount of results to the most amount of people? For example, if you're going and you're doing an Amazon search, you can clearly see let's say, even in the topic of rapid skill acquisition, you will see a few books rising to the top very easily. This doesn't have to take days in order to find this. But the research is basically finding the highest frequency material. Deconstruction is like you start going through the material and you try to discover all of the key elements, sometimes called the sub-skills, of the thing that you are trying to learn. And then you need to find what critical elements keep repeating. I'll give you just a quick example now, although I'll go in more examples in the presentation. If you're trying to learn about productivity, there are so many books on productivity that is not even funny how many books are on productivity. But basically, they will boil down to something like this. 80-20 Pareto principle. Another key element is going to be blocking time. So time blocking as a technique. Another element will be focused or deliberate practice. And another one will be basically something along the lines of the Eisenhower decision matrix. So you can Google all of these things. And the final one is like work on the most important thing first. So these are the elements that you will see that they are repeating, appearing all the time in most of these books. Therefore, if you kind of guess, you understand those, you're already 80% into the productivity game. Selection basically means by focusing on critical sub-skills. So you might find multiple skills, like I gave into the productivity example. But what are the sub-skills? What are the absolutely main things? Because if you focus on those are going to get you the fastest results possible. Sequencing means put the critical sub-skills in a gradual progress. What you want, this is the key here for sequencing, is that you are looking for early wins. You want to build momentum. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. So what you're trying to do is to reduce friction or the possibility of failure at the beginning, in the beginning stages, as much as possible. You will see that this reducing friction is something that almost all big companies apply when they are trying to sell something. Most common example is Amazon with its one-click buy, right? So they are trying to remove friction. They're not trying to put you to put your card details again or any other elements. They're just trying to remove as many steps in the process as possible so that your decision is easier. It's the same thing in learning. You're trying to remove friction and the possibility of failure with the caveat at the beginning stages. Stage 3, designing the environment, blocking time for practice, the iterative process, which I'll explain in detail, celebrating progress, and reducing and encoding principles. So when it comes to designing the environment, I am a strong believer in designing your environment for success and removing internal and external barriers. For example, if you want to read more, just put your books lying around next to your bedside table, or in your room so you can easily find them. If you want to practice a guitar, don't put your guitar in a cabinet, right? Put your guitar in the middle of the room so you literally stumble onto it, so there is no friction. You want to go to the gym, have your gym bag prepared and your running shoes prepared and everything prepared the night before, so the next day is as easy as possible just to jump into your clothes and move on. This is this idea of designing. You can actively design your environment to remove barriers. Blocking time for practice, it goes without saying. There is a big difference between learning and, and doing. Learning is just a small component, but what gets you the result is the doing, right? So this is basically deliberate practice, blocking time, which is the main technique that I use for almost anything, time blocking in my calendar. Focus time means uninterrupted time dedicated to the task at hand. And then another key element here is spaced repetition. How often do I want to tackle the skill that I'm going to be tackling? Do I do it daily? Do I do it once every 3 days? Spaced repetition is very important for learning. Iterative process. Basically, you need to create a system for learning, which is fundamentally what I'm explaining here. This is a system, because systems beat goals every single time. Create a system beats goals every time. This is another element that I'll be talking more about. Celebrating progress, success leads to passion, more than passion leads to success. This is a statement that very few people agree with me on. I fundamentally believe that by getting early wins in everything actually increases your motivation to do that thing, which increases this, what people say, I have a passion for this particular thing. I happen to believe that you actually got somehow early wins in that particular thing that got you motivated to do more. You did more repetition, you became better at it, which created the passion, because most probably you're also praised by others around you for your thing. It's the same thing with me. With English, I learned it as a kid by following my curiosity, and I was like 5 or 6 years old when I started learning it from TV. But then my parents were just blown away at their little kid from the village that started speaking a different language. At that point, they were just words. So I was like, ooh, I'm getting praise. Let's learn more of this English language. And the final one is reduce and encode. So for those of you who study memory, for example, you know that memory, all it is an encoding system, a storage, and a retrieval. So you encode information, you store it in your mind, and then you can retrieve it whenever you need. So let's go to a case study. So that's pretty much the formula. And I'm going to go through a case study of nutrition, where I'm going to walk you through my method for learning about nutrition by following all of those steps in sequence. So nutrition, phase 1, know your why. For me, is fundamental. My belief is that the first wealth is health, and that a great life requires great health. Therefore, there is a form of intrinsic motivation that was already tied to this one. I need to be healthy and strong and energetic in order to live the life that I want. I picked my target level. I actually wanted to become second nature to me. I wanted to become automated. I don't want to have to think about it. It's part of my identity. So in that formula that I showed earlier, basically it will be something like mastery. So I aimed for mastery. Knowing that the target level is mastery, I gave myself years for this. And it took me roughly 5 to 7 years, the entire process, to achieve what I call my personal definition of mastery in nutrition. Setting the stakes, intrinsic. It's very self-explanatory because it's from knowing your why. My life vision depends on great health, right? To achieve all of the things that I need, I need to have great health. And intrinsic motivation, I actually use these stakes. I started telling people that I have a great health. Therefore, I started to learn more, because anytime I was asked about things, I wanted to explain. And then I started to practice more, et cetera, et cetera. It became a reinforcing loop. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 and 3 are kind of interlinked. This is what I call my formula for learning anything, solve et coagula, which is a Latin term which means dissolve and coagulate. Dissolve and put together. Break down into its components, study them piece by piece, and then encode them back on the other side with your own definition of success. So it basically goes from these research, deconstruction, selection, and sequencing, that iterative process, and then to the principles to reduce and encode. So let's go to each of them as applied to this task of mine of nutrition. So research and deconstruction. I searched the books. These are several of the books that I found. I read the books plus many others. Then in my selection and sequencing phase, I literally saw that the selection of, again, the key elements that keep repeating for health, right? It's food, movement, sleep, water, and air. Then I wanted to put them in a sequence that can give me the most bang for my buck. And then I saw also this mimics how actually we need all of these elements. So air is number one. So I started doing breathing practices, and I'm like, oh, I'm a healthy person. I started doing breathing practices, right? So it started creating this good feeling inside me. Next one is water. Is simply drink more clean water. Next one is look at your sleep. And food was number 4 on this thing. So there were 3 other things that I needed to look at first before moving on to food. And the 5th one is movement. A win anywhere is a win everywhere in this particular area. So it doesn't matter where you start, but that was the sequence that I start. So for nutrition afterwards, I was like, oh, okay. So those are the things for health in general. But for nutrition, these are the things that repeat everywhere. Macros, micros, the food type or source, frequency of eating, and the hunger type. And when I started sequencing them, I saw that hunger type comes first, basically emotional. Most eating is emotional. So if you tackle your emotions and you understand your emotions, like you understand why do you eat the way you eat when you eat, what triggers it, for me is like 80% of the game is right there. So that's why I tackle that one first. Next is the food type. Then you start to learn about macros and micros. And the last one is frequency or intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting as an idea. Okay, let's move on to this iterative process. I had the selection, I had the sequencing, I understood. And the iterative process is fundamentally a system where you start to implement what you're learning. Again, learning is just a small phase of this. Implementation is the bulk element. Implementation, action, practice is the thing that's going to get you the results. So anything starts off as a hypothesis, as in like, okay, let's test this thing out. You take action, then you will fail. Then you need to understand the source of the failure. If you understand the source of the failure, you learn something new. You improve your hypothesis, and then you repeat. And there's going to be another failure point, et cetera, et cetera. And at one point, there's literally going to be like, I have an hypothesis, I take action, and I get the desired result. Right? So that's how it works, but it's time consuming. This is often called the scientific worldview, which I happen to be a great fan of. Everything is a hypothesis to be tested. There is no failure, only failure to learn. Failure plus reflection equals progress. Whenever you fail, you try to understand the source of your failure, you improve your hypothesis, and you carry on. Failure minus reflection equals stagnation. Or, how I love to say it in a very politically incorrect way, is failure minus reflection equals mindless suffering. Here are examples of hypotheses. Again, I tried multiple. These are just for illustration purposes. So I tried examples from the slow-carb diet, the ketogenic diet, wild fit diet, Mediterranean diet, and several others. These will be the elements for some of them, some of the elements, right, that I tested. I go through this iterative process. So I take each one and I try it, and then I fail because it doesn't resonate with me, or it doesn't resonate with my environment, or it doesn't resonate with some elements of my character. The key point of the iterative process, this taking action, is to make it uniquely yours. What does this mean? It means that you need to have real world results. If that practice does not change your behavior, it's useless for you, right? Maybe not the entire thing, but parts of it, right? So you have to make it uniquely yours. For example, in my case, I do not expect any methodology that someone else created to work for me from the start entirely how that person laid it out. You can apply the same here. I'm already giving you an example of a system for learning. You can take it as it is, but please know that you need to adapt it and make it yours in order for this thing to truly give you results. So by testing all of these things, I stumble on a few things that actually I can resonate with. They are consistent with my character. I can consistently do, and I can also keep them for long periods of time, right? So I just selected those things. And now we move on to this coagula, bringing things back. So distilling the principles from all of this hard work and then reducing and encoding them. These are a few elements. I'll not be going through them, but it's a few of the principles that I discovered. Like, for example, listening to my body. It became second nature to me. This idea of intentional movement becomes second nature to me. I don't look for elaborate things. I literally just need to to introduce intentional movement in my day. And calorie restriction extends life. So this is like fasting. From everything I read, one of the key elements that extends life is actually eating less than we normally do now. So for me, it was like, oh, okay, it seems to be repeating everywhere. Good thing, have to apply. And then these principles, I reduce and encode them even more. And this is my personal golden rule for nutrition. Eat real food, diversified till you're 80% full, and fast occasionally. This is everything that I know about nutrition encapsulated in a sentence. And you will see that, for example, whenever I am asked about something, I can literally take one of the elements here, for example, eat real food, and then I'll break it down into the principles, and then I can talk about each of the principles that I lay down there, and then I can break it down even more and start giving like elaborate conversations on the thing. So this is how I do it. And ultimately, I call this thing, like when you practice and you learn a lot, embodied knowledge. So you actually bear the metaphorical scars of the things that you are saying. I don't need anybody to tell me these things. I know these things. I lived through these things. So this element of embodied knowledge leads to identity change. Currently, I believe that I am a healthy person that's responsible about his health. So here are the key takeaways for rapid scale acquisition. You need to build a system that works for yourself, improve it over time with consistency and patience. The ultimate vision, if I am to give one, is to develop the identity of the person who has the skill that you want. And I believe that working on the system allows you to achieve the vision and become that person. It's as easy as that. Work on the system until you become the person and you achieve the vision. And I wanted to drive home this point of identity even more. So I'm going to explain about outcome systems and identity. This is something that I learned from James Clear. This is also my interpretation of the system. Outcome system and identity. This is the easiest way that I can explain these things. Outcome is about the result that you want. It's about what you get, and it's linked to the future. System is the habits and actions fundamentally representing what you do, and they are linked to the present. Identity is a state of being, is a consistent state of being, is who you are, is consistent. For example, I believe of myself that I am a reader. I'm a person who loves reading. Well, I was a reader last week, and I'm a reader today, and I'm going to be a reader also next week. So it's a consistent state. I don't have to track anything. You don't need to convince me. I don't need any more elaborate systems for reading. I just do, because it's part of my identity. And I really love what James Clear said. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fail to the level of your systems. Here are examples of outcome, system, and identity. I just tried to come up with a few simple things. So in nutrition, an outcome would be like lose 10 kilos. A system is what I found for myself, right? Eat real food, diversified, 80% full, fast occasionally. This is what I do on a consistent basis. And I don't have to worry about the outcome. The outcome just happens. Now, the identity is I am a healthy person. Because I do all of the elements that a healthy person does, therefore I don't have to worry even about the system anymore. Fitness, outcome. Most people get ripped, get shredded, right? System is I exercise 3 times a week. That's it. I just show up and go there and release the idea of the outcome. But the identity is even more powerful. I am an athlete. For an athlete, you don't need to tell an athlete that the athlete needs to go to the gym. The athlete does, because it's part of their identity. Learning, outcome, read 100 books per year. So people said this, but the system is actually more important, right? It's read 1 page per day. This is my example. Read 1 page per day. But the identity that you're trying to build is, I am a reader. Some more examples. Wealth. Have X amount of dollars monthly passive income. This is the outcome. The system is also something that I talked at length in my other workshop on the 9-step formula for achieving financial freedom. The system is make money, keep money, invest in assets that generate cash flow, and repeat. That's basically it. By doing the system over many years, I now have the identity that I am financially literate. I know how to manage my money well. In personal development terms, I am a money magnet, you know? So all of these identity shifts happen, and I possess them now for myself. Business. Have a $1 million business. I've heard it so many times from people, but the system is master client acquisition, so get money to the door, delegate, automate, eliminate everything else that doesn't do that. Right? This can be a system, an example of a system. But the identity that is more powerful is that I am a serial entrepreneur. Businesses fail, entrepreneurs don't. What this means is that someone who has the identity of an entrepreneur might fail once or twice or three times or whatever, but because they are the type of people that want to start something new, build something new, that inner belief that they are an entrepreneur, that cannot fail in the long run. Relationships, outcome, the desire. I have a passionate love affair with my partner. The system is weekly date night or do something nice every day for your partner. The identity would be I'm a loving and supportive partner. So you know it within you. Here are some key ideas about outcome versus system versus identity. If you do it every day, it's a system. If you're waiting to achieve it in the future, it's a goal. Your goal is the desired outcome. The system is the daily habits and actions that will get you there. Another key important element to say, you can think about this in goal-driven people versus system-driven people. Goal-driven people are happy whenever they achieve the goal. And again, if the goal is in the future, you are basically delaying your happiness till an imaginary time in the future. System-driven people are actually happy every single time they apply the system. So you bring that pleasure more into the present time. That's why systems also tend to beat goals because of this element. Every time I apply my make money, keep money, invest in cash flow generating assets, I feel happy about myself. The outcome will happen automatically. Okay, and then aim to build habits that create and reinforce your desired identity. Very important. And working on the system will allow you to achieve the outcome and the identity. And the final thing I want to talk about, and this element, is that, okay, this is all cool and fancy, but I don't know where to start, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know where is it. So for me, there is a hierarchy, like no vision, outcome, or goal is the starting point. And this is horrible because I believe you're a piece of driftwood that you don't have something to aim towards. Therefore, everything is possible and nothing is possible at the same time. But the next one is when you don't know what to pick, my advice is aim badly. Let me repeat that. Aim badly at first. Aim towards anything. Start doing, get feedback from reality. And this way you'll have a suboptimal vision, outcome, or goal, right? You are aiming badly, but you'll get information, and that information will help you clarify the target. So whenever you're feeling stuck, aim towards something. Anything is better than nothing at the beginning. Then you clarify your target, then you start building on your system, and then you will achieve the identity. And like I always love to say, it's literally a process where little by little over time, it turns into a mountain. Here are a couple of the resources. So for meta learning is Learning How to Learn by Barbara Oakley, The 4-Hour Chef by Timothy Ferriss, The First 20 Hours by Josh Kaufman, The Art of Learning by Josh Wayskin, and other books that are great along the same topic that I talked about. Atomic Habits by James Clear, Principles by Ray Dalio, Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer, which is about memory, Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and Deep Work by Cal Newport. And that is all. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you got lots of value from it. And until I see you on some of our other sessions, be extraordinary, my friends. Thank you again. Bye-bye.